Well, I'm not convicted of any crimes. I'm a free person who has not been convicted of anything, just as the same as you are or anyone else here.
In February 2025, Andrew Tate flew out of Romania and declared total victory to millions online. He thought the game was over. He thought he'd beaten the system. He was dead wrong. While everyone was watching his triumphant return to America, the private jets, the victory tweets, the whole spectacle, two major legal storm fronts were converging behind the scenes, completely out of view of his fanbase. Romania never dropped his criminal case. Despite all the claims flying around online that he'd been cleared, the human trafficking and rape charges in Bucharest remained wide open. Delayed by evidence disputes, sure. Slowed down by a legal system that moves at its own pace. But very much alive the entire time. Now, British prosecutors are leveling 38 brand new charges, ranging from serial rape to severe exploitation. And the result of all of this converging at once? A genuine tricontinental legal tug-of-war between Washington, London, and Bucharest. 3 governments, 3 legal systems, all with a piece of this case. The political wins in Washington gave him an exit from Eastern Europe, but they didn't stop the storm that was waiting for him on the other side. Let's break down exactly how this happened. To understand this properly, you have to go back to how he ended up in Romania in the first place. Back in 2016, after Andrew Tate was removed from British reality television following a leaked video, the brothers made a very calculated move overseas. On multiple podcasts over the years, Andrew openly bragged about relocating specifically because he believed Romania had relaxed corruption laws and a more lenient attitude towards sexual misconduct investigations. He picked the country. That wasn't an accident. By December 2022, Romanian authorities caught up with them anyway. They were charged with human trafficking, rape, and forming an organized crime group. Months in a Romanian prison followed, then house arrest, then years of judicial supervision while the case crawled through Bucharest's courts. And here's the part I think a lot of people misunderstood. When travel restrictions finally lifted in early 2025, that didn't mean the case was resolved. It just meant he was allowed to physically leave the country while the Romanian proceedings continued in the background. The charges never disappeared, they just went quiet. So picture this from his perspective. He's sitting there in early 2025, restrictions just lifted, and he tweets that the Tates will be free because Trump is president, that the good old days are back and they'll be better than ever. Total victory lap. Millions of views, millions of people cheering him on. He genuinely believed that flying to America, surrounded by high-profile political allies, gave him a permanent shield. A force field made entirely out of political connections. What he apparently didn't factor in, or chose to ignore, was that the Romanian case wasn't closed. It was just paused for evidentiary reasons. And across the Atlantic, British law enforcement was quietly and methodically building an entirely separate, much larger case against him. While he was out here posting victory tweets, detectives in Bedfordshire were assembling the exact case file that would eventually catch up to him in Miami, just hours before U.S.
If any female on the planet has a problem with me, I strongly recommend her to go to the police and try and pursue me for criminal charges. I'm actually such a nice person that I've never had anyone come at me.
The BBC has spoken to somebody since your arrest who says exactly those things, that with you it's all manipulation, there's an ulterior motive to everything you do.
Is this Sophie? Oh, it's Sophie, the fake name, no face. No,
I was so intent on wanting to please him and wanting him to be happy that I was just kind of, yeah, okay, do whatever you want.
And what does she accuse? Has she accused me of a crime, this imaginary Sophie?
She's making the point that there is
Has she accused me of a crime?
Emotional or psychological manipulation.
I've asked you a question, and I've allowed you into my house.
I'm asking you a question.
Correct, but you're not the boss here, because I've allowed you into my house.
I'm asking you the questions.
Correctly, and I'm telling you.
You get to decide the answers.
No, we're equal here. I've allowed you into my house. You don't come here with a position of authority. I'm doing you the favor as legacy media, giving you relevance by speaking to you, and I'm telling you now, this Sophie, which the BBC has invented, which there's no face of, nobody knows who she is.
The BBC did not invent her.
Of course not, and because you never invent anything. And she's not filed criminal charges against me. What are we talking about here?
The unsealed filings describe alleged victims being physically restrained during assaults, one to the point of losing consciousness. Prosecutors allege the scheme relied heavily on the loverboy method, luring women in under the guise of a real relationship, isolating them from their support systems, confiscating their passports so they physically couldn't leave, then coercing them into producing content for profit. That's not an aggressive dating strategy.
Have you raped anybody?
Absolutely not.
Have you trafficked anybody?
Absolutely not.
Exploited any women for money?
Absolutely not.
But you have admitted using emotional manipulation to get women to work in the webcam industry for you.
No. We have an open criminal investigation. I am absolutely and utterly sure I'll be found innocent. I know the case better than you. I know it intimately and you don't. I have seen all the criminal files and the evidence against me and you haven't. I know the truth of what happened and you don't. And I'm telling you absolutely and utterly, I've never hurt anybody, that the case that's been put against me is completely and utterly fabricated, and I'm never going to be found guilty of anything. And it's very difficult for me to answer your in-depth questions because we're sitting here inside of the territory of Romania. I'm beholden to the Romanian legal system, and I'm not going to incriminate myself.
Let me read you then what you have said about what you have done.
Sure.
You have said, my job was to meet a girl, go on a few dates, sleep with her, get her to fall in love with me to the point where she'd do anything I say, and then get her on webcam so we could become rich together. I
don't think that's what I personally said. I think
that's exactly what you said on your website.
No, I've never said that. That's something that you found on the internet. Doesn't mean I've said it.
That's the legal definition of human trafficking, and it's the framework prosecutors are building this entire case around. Now here's where the tricontinental part of this story actually becomes critical to understand, because it explains why his legal team is in such an impossible position. Under the original arrangement, Romanian authorities had agreed to defer their own case, essentially letting the UK's extradition process take priority once it got moving, rather than fighting over jurisdiction. But by physically traveling to the United States, the Tates ended up opening a completely different legal corridor, a direct pathway between Washington and London under the 2003 US-UK extradition treaty, letting British prosecutors move straight through the U.S. Department of Justice instead of waiting on anything happening in Bucharest. In trying to find safety in America, they may have actually accelerated the exact outcome they were trying to avoid. That's the irony sitting at the center of this whole story, hoping someone in Washington would pick up the phone. That hope died fast. Senior officials within the U.S. State Department confirmed the United States government has zero intention of blocking, delaying, or interfering with the extradition proceedings.
These cases have a process that they go through in the courts. My understanding is that they're involved in that judicial process. And so that'll play itself out at this point, and there's no role for us to play at this moment or maybe ever in that regard. But I'm not going to opine on something that's still working through a legal process.
Washington will fully honor its obligations under the 2003 treaty. No exceptions. Here's why that matters so much legally. Extradition requests aren't decided by political favoritism or social media clout. They're governed by treaty law and specifically by something called dual criminality. That principle requires the alleged conduct to constitute a serious felony under the laws of both countries. Rape, trafficking, assault, and child sexual abuse material are top-tier felonies in literally every jurisdiction in the United States. There's no legal gray area here for a judge to exploit. Dual criminality isn't just met, it's overwhelmingly established. When Andrew and Tristan Tate appeared in Miami federal court before U.S. Magistrate Judge Lauren Louie, the reality of their situation was laid completely bare. No designer suits, no cigars, no entourage. Tan federal detention uniforms and heavy leg shackles instead. Their attorney revealed that following the arrest, the brothers spent their first several days in solitary confinement. Bail is basically off the table too. Under U.S. extradition law, there's a legal presumption against bail unless the defense can show special circumstances. Given their financial resources, dual citizenship, extensive history of hopping between the US, UK, and Romania, and years of public statements bragging about avoiding legal systems entirely, prosecutors have an airtight flight risk argument. They'll likely stay in federal custody for the entire extradition process. So what's left for their legal team? Honestly, not much beyond delay tactics. Extradition hearings aren't full criminal trials. The American judge isn't deciding guilt or innocence. That's reserved for the eventual trial court in London. The U.S. judge is only determining whether there's probable cause. Because that bar is so hard to challenge directly, expect the defense to lean on procedural moves instead, challenging the technical drafting of the extradition packet, filing habeas corpus petitions, appealing up through federal court. That can drag the timeline out for months, maybe longer. But it doesn't change the outcome. It just means more time behind bars while the paperwork moves. And through all of this, Romania's case is still sitting there in the background, unresolved. If the UK trial concludes and there's any sentence to serve beyond it, Romanian prosecutors could still come knocking on a separate front. This is genuinely a three-country legal entanglement, and every version of the outcome ends the same way, with these two facing serious consequences somewhere. I think the bigger story here, beyond the legal mechanics, is what this represents. For years, the Tate brothers sold an entire ideology to millions of young men that enough money, enough clout, and enough political connections meant the rules stopped applying to you. They framed every investigation as political persecution instead of accountability owed to actual victims. And a lot of guys bought into that completely. Now, faced with 59 serious criminal charges stemming from 7 alleged victims in Britain, plus a still active Romanian case in the background, as Matt Jury, the attorney representing 4 of the British accusers, put it, these women have spent over a decade fighting for law enforcement to actually take action, all while facing relentless online harassment from people defending the Tates. A decade, think about that timeline next to the victory lap tweet from February 2025. So here's where things actually stand. The mechanics are activated. The treaty corridor is open. Washington has stepped aside. Once the federal magistrate completes certification and the Secretary of State signs the warrant of surrender, U.S. Marshals hand them directly to UK police for a flight to London, where they'll face trial at the Old Bailey, with Romania's case potentially still waiting on the other side of whatever happens there. The storm he thought he flew away from in February 2025 was never actually gone. It was just building. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think Romania re-engages once the UK case wraps up, or does this end with just the British trial? Drop your take below. If this breakdown helped connect the dots, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for the next update. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.